but he's not in the first session. Okay. Better going. I'll come on because yeah.
Celebrating Asia-Pacific's cultural diversity and talent. Serving 4 billion people in news, sports, and entertainment. Reducing the digital gap between broadcasters. Fostering creativity and innovation. Building bridges between nations. ABU, taking Asia-Pacific broadcasting to the future.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. We will have two very interesting sessions on moving ahead media lessons for future challenges. Over 300 participants have registered for these two dialogues, and we are expecting them to join us for this afternoon. We will have two sessions with the same topic, as you know. And I would like to start the first session without delay so that we can start the second session also without delay. And on that note, I would like to welcome all participants and request them that if they want to ask any question, they can raise hand or they can drop a note in chat box and comment or put a questions to panelists. At the same time, I would like to welcome 5 distinguished panelists, and I would like to introduce them one by one, starting from Sheena Hughes, who is the Director General EMTV in Papua New Guinea. Then we have Mr. Yusui, who is coming from Tokyo Broadcasting System, Japan. And then we have Abrim Jan, PBC Director General from Pakistan, who is joining us from Islamabad. Then we have Yerlin Bekhojin, Chairman of Khabar Agency in Kazakhstan. And then we have Alexei Nikolov, our friend from Russia, who is joining us in Moscow. And he was telling me that it's not too much cold in Moscow. Happy that the weather is okay. And welcome you all. And I would like to begin the dialogue by asking panelists to unmute when we ask question and speak. And then when they finish, please put their audio on mute. Immediately, I would like to start with Sheena, asking the first question. Sheena, what is the most important lessons that you learned in the Pacific region for future challenges?
Hi, good afternoon, Dr. Jawad. I think it's afternoon in Papua New Guinea. So I'd just like to say good afternoon to everybody. And thank you very much for having me on this panel today. And obviously a good afternoon to all the other panelists. And it's very nice to see everybody in their offices or in their homes, away from all the COVID pandemic that seems to be out in our environments these days. Just for your question, Javad, I think there are a few lessons that we've learned for future challenges. And I think one of them would be obviously maintaining operations at minimal capacity. Obviously, you know, COVID has brought us a lot of challenges. And one of that is just having to learn how to maintain our operations at minimal capacity, because obviously when things obviously in our industry get a little harder, we have to go on skeleton staff and obviously adjust to not having all our staff in the office. The other one obviously is how networking and partnerships are very important or very vital during such times. As you know, and having the partnership with ABU is a good example. Obviously, what we've learned is through these partnerships, we're still able to be sustainable. For example, with ABU, we've been able to get some training in-house during these times, obviously, with the travel restrictions. Yeah, and also the sustainability of our mobility. Obviously, in our industry, mobility is very important, especially with news. So we've learned lessons of how to adjust to restrictions as such. So yeah, I mean, there has been a lot of lessons that we've learned right throughout the Pacific region, and hopefully this will help us look at other challenges that we may face in the future, and obviously how we can work smarter.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheena.
Yes.
Thank you for your quick actions. And I would like now to go to Tokyo and put a question to Yusui-san. How the pandemic actually affected the Japan's television industry as a whole?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Javad Mottaghi and all the ABU colleagues. And well, when the first wave attacked in Japan, like last spring, the many production has been kind of postponed. Everything has been kind of stopped, and we have learned that you know, how to produce the programs in a remote way, and also that's almost the same. But the viewing of the viewers' viewing habits has been changed, that I can say, which is like, you know, video researching incorporation in Japan's, you know, the measurement and the research company recently provided how TV viewing has been changed, you know, from the time to time, from the COVID through the COVID, and maybe hopefully next after COVID. But, you know, the viewing habit between December 21 and January 11th, the people enjoyed watching more than the last season. That's obvious. And the household using the TV market highest in 10 years. That's a very, very good to know. And this is since the, you know, the Greater Eastern Japan's earthquake hit Japan. And so that was a good news. And also, there's another interesting research by T-Vision company. Another research company indicated that TV gained viewers of male 35 to 49 years old because of the pandemic, because many people work remotely from home. So the many of the workers, you know, watching TV at the same time working on the desk from home. That is a bright side. Okay. But then also there's a dark side, like Dentsu, Japan's Japan's biggest ad agency has recently announced about advertising status 2020. Because of the pandemic, Japan's total ad investment in 2020 was assumed 3,159.5 billion yen. That is about 58 billion US dollars. It's 11.2% down from the previous year. And the recession was the first since the 2009, the year the Greater Japan earthquake hit also. The GDP was down by about 4%, so ad industry was more damaged in the average market, that we can say, yes.
Interesting statistics you mentioned, and especially viewers' habit change. And of course, the reduction of the advertisement income. So thank you. We'll get back to that later. I would like to go now to Islamabad. Abrin John. You are the Director General of Pakistan Broadcasting Corporation. Many media professionals believe that radio has actually grown stronger during COVID-19 pandemic. Have you seen this in Radio Pakistan, and what have you been doing to both make it happen and sustain its growth? Abin John? I think we lost connection. So, okay, Abin John. Okay, I will go to Yelin, and we'll give some time to Abin John to join us. Yelin in Kazakhstan, Astana. The first question I would like to put you is that what is the most important lesson you learned in the pandemic for Khabar Agency as a public service broadcaster in Kazakhstan?
Dear Dr. Mottaghi, dear colleagues, I'm glad to welcome all of you to this meeting. And I hope that you are doing good, and you are in a good health and working successfully during this difficult period. And I also would like to express my special gratitude to the EBU Secretariat, represented by Mr. Mottaghi, for organizing such a useful platform. What is interesting is that we are confronted with the true uncertainty of human existence and the true vulnerability of human life. How often have many of us used to believe that we are in control of our lives and the world around us? The COVID-19 pandemic has proved that opposite is in a very short time. Thousands of people lost their jobs, homes, and loved ones. As one of the key sources of information in our country, our agency also had to deal with the circumstances using the tools that were available in our hands. In fact, the whole pandemic story has forced us to face a number of challenges that have taught us many important lessons to deal with the new realities. Perhaps the most important of them is ensuring mobility in the work of all departments of the agency. Building processes in such a way that it takes several times less than resources to complete the assigned tasks that it did before. Just a simple example, for the period of pandemic, we've managed to build new structures on television channels, 2 television channels. So, yeah, of course, there was also a revision of the content during the pandemic. It was important to provide the viewer with the products that would help to distract from the overwhelming emotional load. Therefore, the bet was made on entertainment programs, TV series, and feature films.
I see.
Constant work was carried out on the search and the subsequent display of new products that would be carried promptly and with the latest resource consumption.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yelin. I understand that Abim John is back online, and I wonder whether you have heard my question to you. And my question was the fact that I said that radio has actually grown stronger during COVID-19 pandemic. And I would like you to share with us your perspective, whether this happened in Radio Pakistan or whether you made it happen.
Yes, I agree with this, that radio has actually grown stronger during this pandemic, in the sense that we discovered our strength in being able to work and to deliver with half our workforce. We cut down our workforce because of the precautions in place. 50% of the people were coming here to office, and we were able to manage as well as when all of them were working. And another thing was that in case of children who are out of school, we were able to collaborate with the Ministry of Education and we were able to provide lessons, online lessons to out of school children. And not only that, we were able to get the messages of health experts and charity organizations through to the people who wanted most. So I think radio played its part very well. And another thing that we discovered was that we were able to increase our finances also.
Okay.
Instead of cutting down on finances, we were able to expand our business. So these are the strengths.
Yeah, so practically rating has gone up.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Let us go to Moscow, where Alexei Nikolov is there. My friend Alexei, Europe and US have dominated the international media space for years. Do you think that this will change in the future?
Thank you, Chairman. Well, you like short answers, so my short answer is yes. And of course, this has been happening already, and it will continue to go like that. And it's not because these outlets are become any better because they're bad. We just get so much more opportunities to learn firsthand. I remember my younger years when I worked for the Soviet Union's only independent radio station. And as soon as the coup in 1991 started, we were cut off air. So the only source of information, if you live in Moscow, the only source of information about Moscow was CNN. But it's very different now. Because of the web, you have unlimited access to any source in the world. If I want to know something about Australia, for example, something is happening in Australia, I will immediately go to ABC, and it's not American ABC, it will be Australian ABC. If I want to know something about Korea, I will go to our friends from KBS and so on. So this is the process that you cannot stop. You want to know about the country, you go to the source. And this is not talking about the blogosphere, which is a totally different animal. So my short answer is yes.
Yes,
that's
so
what we will see.
More players, actually more sources of information. It is true. That is true. Let me go back to Sheena and Papua New Guinea. And Sheena, COVID pandemic is imposing huge stress on overburdened health resources around PNG. And how broadcast media such as EMTV and national broadcasters are able to help in struggle to keep Papua New Guinea people safe during this crisis? Sheena, unmute, please, your audio. Unmute your audio. Thank you. You have the floor.
Yes, Java, just thank you very much. Just on that, the stats now for Papua New Guinea, we have around 5,349 active cases, and we've also had 51 deaths to date. So obviously this has skyrocketed in just the last 2 weeks. So we're very skeptical about that. And there are a lot of restrictions that have been put in place, as you would imagine. I think how in our industry, especially television broadcasters can actually assist in the struggle to keep Papua New Guineans safe is really through clear messaging and preparedness, and this can be disseminated using our TV platform, but also more importantly, our online platform, which is the most viewed and the largest in the country. So as much messaging as we can get out there, clear messaging from government and obviously from stakeholders, and also just making sure that Papua New Guineans are prepared as best they can, or protecting themselves as best they can. The other thing is also working with partners, medical partners, hospitals, St. John's Ambulance, for example, to promote their initiatives to the public, and also, for things such as testing. So I guess the more awareness that we can get out there, the more we can sort of help towards the struggle of COVID in this country.
Actually, the situation in terms of a statistic that you mentioned is not bad. I mean, compared to other countries who have much more. unfortunately cases
That is
and much
correct.
more deaths. Yeah, but you are lucky in that sense. I want to fly
Right.
to Tokyo, back to Yusui-san. And
Yes.
Yusui-san, seeing OTT platforms grow in the world,
Mhm.
can you let us know the situation in Japan?
Well, I have just mentioned about the TV ads were quite damaged, like a total ad spending loss by 11.3% just before. But when you're looking at the broadcast ad VOD, advertising the VOD services growing by 13.3%. That's the kind of business. It's really growing. So definitely the market is moving forward to digital transformation, and seeing about the OTT things. So that our commercial broadcasters, AVOD, AdVOD platform, TVer shows steady growth. Unique browser kept growing to over 19 million, and the monthly viewing reached over 140 million. So last year, TBS founded the department focusing on digital transformation, including catch-ups and the SVOD business. So that we say that the DX sector keep growing. So I think this is a matter of the distribution of TV, not just air, but also we have to do online at the same time, since the marketers and also the viewers moving forward to digital transformation during the pandemic. So the OTT have more potential, even not just like a Netflix or the other SVOD service, but for the broadcasters VOD, I'm hopeful for the future. Thank you.
That is good. That is a promising note. Let me go to Islamabad again and ask Abimjan about radio. And radio has carved out new roles in the world of converging media. What has been your experience with radio's role in convergence? And can you give us some examples where radio has played a specific, unique role in convergence?
Radio Pakistan has been keeping pace with the developments that are taking all around us. And in spite of the scant resources that are at hand, we are able to provide 27 stations of ours can be live streamed everywhere across the world. And besides that, we have another 26 channels that are available on mobile apps. So we are dependent on our broadcasts. For example, if there are a few places in Pakistan, in the remotest areas, like in Balochistan or in Pakhtunkhwa, where our voice cannot be heard. So even inside Pakistan and across Pakistan, we are available on Facebook, Twitter, and there's no field, no sphere, like in the case of medical facilities, in providing information about schools, in providing information about all calamities, like the attack of locusts, etc. We are in the vanguard. We are helping the government connect with the people who don't have the privileges.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I'd like to go to Astana now and put a question to Yelin in terms of what changes will Khabar Agency keep after COVID-19. I don't know whether it is now appropriate to talk about post-COVID-19 situation, but I would like to hear from you.
As I have already mentioned, the pandemic has shown us all how small our planet is, how closely we are connected to each other, and how an event in one country can affect the entire alignment on a global scale. On the other hand, we have become even closer, more attentive, and more careful to our surroundings. All of these, to some extent, has influenced people's attitude to the role of the media. We recognize that pre-quarantine or post-quarantine reality will stay with us for a long time. During the pandemic, we learned that telecommuting had become a major means of getting work done, as everyone was isolated in their homes, in their apartments, and we could continue to provide our employees with the ability to do work from home as long as it does not require the critical physical presence of that employee in the office. This will probably also help to save costs as some employees may not need to do their work at the office full time. As an alternative, of course, we can provide co-working spaces that can be shared by 2 or more employees who don't always need to come to the office, but do some of their work from home. It will also help to promote work-life balance, which will make employees happier as a result.
Okay.
The situation is like this.
Thank you very much, Yelin. I would like to change the topic and ask Alexei another question, not related to COVID directly. There are many regional conflicts, some of them lasting decades, like Palestine, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Libya. How do you think that media can contribute to reduce tension and finding solutions for the existing problems? And do you think that the media is doing enough to do that, to initiate peace-building initiatives?
Well, again, giving a very short answer to your question as you like it, the answer is no. We are not doing enough as a trade, as a profession. How can we do more? I think there are 2 things that we should do and that we should do better. First, report things objectively, never forgetting we are journalists, we have certain ethical standards, trying not to take sides. You cannot be 100% neutral, and I'm convinced this is just impossible. You do not have to pretend, but you have to limit yourself with the ethical standards. And that's actually what should separate journalists from bloggers. We have to abide not only by legal standards, but also by professional standards. And another very important thing is show the human side, because all the military conflicts inevitably involve human suffering, human disasters. So this is important. We should start not with the strategic things, leave strategic things probably to military people. Start with the human side on both sides. See the world through the eyes of the suffering person. That's the most important, I would say.
Okay, thank you very much, Alexei. And actually, we have a lot to say on peace building initiative for media. And I was just on a conference with UNESCO half an hour ago, and officially announced that ABU will launch on 1st of April the ABU Awards on peace building initiatives for radio, for television, for new media, and we will invite all members to contribute and submit entries. And I think that is something, at least as a regional organization, as an international organization, ABU can do. And we would like to strengthen that in terms of creating a better situation, creating a better understanding, tolerance among the stakeholders, and show the examples that we can bring from the broadcasting perspective, who produce program, this building initiative program on community level, on regional level, national level, etc. Okay, I have another question from the participants. How can we maximize the benefit of broadcasting new technology, but avoid all potential risks in line with news gathering, news production, news distribution, and management? I would like to invite one of the panelists to take note of that and respond. Anyone volunteer? Alexei?
Well, I guess I understand the question is being put in a journalistic form to be a little bit more provocative. And of course, the short answer to this, no, we cannot avoid all the risks. That's impossible. But the key thing is that whenever you are being given a choice between being the first with your news, as has always been the motto of any professional news journalist, and verifying your news, being precise, you should always opt for the latter. If you cannot verify your news, if you cannot be sure about your reporting, you should not be breaking the news, okay. Unlike what bloggers are doing.
Okay, I would like to invite panelists and participants to watch and listen to two contributions made by two CEOs. One is chairman of SLRC Sri Lanka, and the other one by Director General of NBT Thailand. So let us hear what these two Director Generals would like to say, and then we'll come back to our conversation.
As the national television station of Sri Lanka, SLRC had to fulfill two Herculean tasks. Number one was to launch a massive media campaign with strength to protect the countrymen from being victims of this totally new pandemic. Number two was to operate the institution with a minimum number of staff who were ordered to work according to newly designed work schedules. At the same time, we had to support activities carried out by the government, such as implementation of quarantine laws, epidemic control measures, and travel restrictions. Another mammoth task was to support the vaccination process, alleviating fears and misconceptions among the general public created through social media. So the most important lesson we learned as a media institution was updating ourselves to face new challenging situations.
จากสถานการณ์ดังกล่าวพวกเราได้เรียนรู้ว่าสื่อนั้นมีบทบาทสำคัญเป็นอย่างยิ่งที่จะทำให้พี่น้องประชาชนนั้นเกิดความตระหนักรู้มีความเข้าใจที่ถูกต้องแล้วก็ส่งเสริมให้เกิดความร่วมมือร่วมใจในการปฏิบัติตนเพื่อป้องกันตนเองปรับเปลี่ยนวิถีชีวิตให้สอดคล้องกับ New Normal โดยที่ไม่ตื่นตระหนกครับผมขอสรุปบทบาทของสื่อของรัฐออกเป็น4บทบาทหลักนะครับได้แก่บทบาทที่1คือการสื่อสารแล้วก็การส่งต่อข้อมูลข่าวสารที่รวดเร็วถูกต้องเชื่อถือได้เป็นไปในทิศทางเดียวกันบทบาทที่2นะครับคือบทบาทของสื่อในการรับมือกับอินโฟเดมิกด้วยการส่งเสริมการรู้เท่าทันสื่อและก็สารสนเทศรัฐบาลไทยได้ตระหนักถึงปัญหานี้เป็นอย่างยิ่งจึงได้เปิดศูนย์ต่อต้านข่าวปลอมขึ้นเพื่อจะตรวจสอบข้อมูลที่เผยแพร่อยู่บนสื่อสังคมออนไลน์และก็ระบบอินเทอร์เน็ตส่วนบทบาทที่3ครับเป็นการสื่อสารข้อมูลเพื่อที่จะชี้ช่องทางในการปรับตัวให้เข้าสู่วิถีชีวิตใหม่บทบาทที่4คือบทบาทในการทำงานร่วมกับหน่วยงานภาครัฐทั้ง20กระทรวงนะครับเป็นแหล่งอ้างอิงที่เชื่อถือได้และก็ที่สำคัญคือเน้นให้สื่อมวลชนนั้นสามารถนำไปขยายผลต่อได้ครับ
Thank you very much, Nihal, SLRC Chairman. Thank you very much, Sansan, NBT Thailand and Director General. Back to our conversation, I would like to go to Papua New Guinea and ask Sheena. Media in PNG have made great step forward, but there are still areas of media inequality across the population, especially geographically and economically, because you have several tribes and all that. How can that be addressed in future to give all PNG access to the same level of media service? Sheena.
Thanks, Javad. I think the main concerns here would be just how much reach we have around the country. Obviously, you know, Papua New Guinea is a very diverse country.
Go ahead.
Sorry, is it okay to go on?
No, go
yeah,
ahead.
PNG is a very diverse country, and obviously our land mass is quite very huge. So it is very hard to, I think the only way that we can do that is to lessen the gap of media inequality, is to make sure that our reach gets to everybody. Obviously that would involve more towers and more satellite reach, but that's something that we're working on, and that we're making sure that in future that all Papua New Guineans are able to access the same levels of media service.
But one of the problems that you have in Papua New Guinea is that practically you have different languages in different tribes. I remember colleagues were telling me that you have about 700 tribes and almost with 700 languages. Of course, English is the main language which could be understood by all population. That's also another challenge you have.
It is a very big challenge. I mean, and we've got over 800 languages. So obviously 800. You can just imagine. how
800
difficult
language.
that would
Actually,
be
when I
to
was
get
in
all the
Papua New Guinea,
languages.
they told me 700. I said the 700 plus one because you didn't have my language. You didn't add my language. Now you're saying 800. That's interesting.
That's true.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, let me go again back to Tokyo and Yusui-san and ask his opinion on perspective for the post-COVID situation. Yusui-san.
Yes, thank you, Javad. Yes, I think that post-COVID, many things are changing because of as I just told you, that the digital transformation has been accelerating in just everywhere because of the pandemic. I think that this situation should be here like in another 5 years or so, but it's just coming to us like just 1 year. So the digital transformation really changed the way the relationship between publishers, viewers, and agencies and advertisers as well. And this momentum will really pushing to remove the a mediator for more direct transactions, which is we are cross-bordering and crossing the many kind of different sectors that used to be in the silos. So the people trying to think that the more kind of in a fair way. So because of on the other hand, broadcasting business has been the very, very kind of, the very, very, how to say, that's like a tree style. It's very not horizontal. And so the way of thinking is more changing, more direct communications. And I think the more new companies emerges, and that means more new advertisers coming, and they are naturally growing in digital world, so that they are less familiar with all the traditional advertising business rather than all the well-established national clients. So as a publisher, we have to be more vocal to appeal what we are to such companies and seek direct relationship. That's, I think, the direction we have to find it. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suisan. Now back to Islamabad, Abring John. Do you think COVID has changed the way you view your public service media responsibilities, maybe for good or maybe for bad?
I think it has changed it for the good. We should always try and concentrate on the positive. And as far as I know, I've been here for more than 1 year, and Radio Pakistan has been acting, radio in general has been acting as a bridge between the privileged and the unprivileged, as far as the developing world is concerned. We are doing special programs. Our focus is all the more intense on empowering segments of society like women, transgender community, all these, the special children. We are doing special programs so that whatever initiative the government is taking should reach these communities. And whatever, for example, in the case of different countries, the embassies that we have in Islamabad, they are connecting with radio. And through them, we are giving messages of, for example, the relief that they are providing in the form of scholarships, training programs. So people in our part of the world, they are able to access all the privileges and the facilities that the world is ready to share with us. So I think it's a huge bridge between the people within the country and across the countries.
Thank you, Abrim John. Thank you. I would like now to touch disinformation, misinformation, and fake news, and go to Astana with Yerlin, and ask Yerlin, what do you think are the most effective ways fighting fake news and verifying content?
В этом роде контента. Dear Mottaghi, Dr. Mottaghi, yeah, I just want to underline and remind you that our capital city is called Nur Sultan. It's no more Astana. So, yeah, coming
I'm
back
sorry.
to the question.
Yes, you are right, Nur Sultan. Yes, and I have been to your lovely capital, and I'm sorry for that. Yes.
There is no mistake, absolutely. The Astana means in Kazakh language capital city. So you're right. So Concerning fake news. So Kazakhstan media sector is a part of global media information system. So in this case, we see that the vital point, the vital setting for us is exactly the struggle with the fake news. So this is absolutely crucial setting, not only for us, but also in front of us. However, in a flow of false, misleading information, the last, let's say, pandemic has shown that the so-called dying out traditional television is no more valid. So we became in that sense absolutely crucial source of trustful information. However, in a flow of false, misleading, or misinterpreted information, the audience has difficulty in understanding who to trust and what to believe. Consumers may be more likely to seek news that reinforces their existing views, even if they are based on unreliable information. This is a critical issue, not only for journalists and the creative editorial staff of the agency, but also for social cooperation and online media platforms. So, yeah, with the media platforms, which have become at the same time key channels for delivering news and all sort of information. The agency's key steps to building and maintaining trust include building so-called culture of integrity, compliance, and ethics that support accurate and objective verified information with a focus on quality content and journalism, monitoring of the content in new platforms, social networks, and other interactive channels to identify potentially dangerous fake news and refute them, strengthening cybersecurity, sensitivity, and objectivity in the coverage of social issues.
Okay.
In this regard, the agency acted as the only source of information. Yeah, even more as a methodologist in these rules of conduct, conducting the event of pandemic. So I'm now talking about the TV channel, which is called Khabar 24, which proved its main standpoint. The editorial staff of this TV channel adequately passed all these tests that was urged by pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a few questions received from participants. One is to Yusui-san. The question to you is that could you explain how and what pandemic do affect on relationship between TV and children in Japan? So that is one question to you.
Thank you, Javad. It's very, very difficult to answer, but you know, the pandemic really changed the way of viewing the TV, and I'm sure that you know, well, unfortunately, the TBS does not have like a kids channel or, you know, the kids programming. So I'm sure that there's so many people watching for example, the NHK. The NHK has educational channel, mainly focusing to the kids, and kids, and you know, all the mother and the also fathers, they are all in the house under like a 24 hours, 7 weeks because of the remote working. So maybe the relationship among those like families are changing. So maybe the parents always trying to, this is just my perspective, but you know, the parent have more kind of guideline for the children to watch, but not just TV, but at the same time, the many kids are watching like you know, tablets or, you know, like a kids contents through the online at the same time. So as for the viewership of the TV, I think that it's really more diversified.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. I don't want to park this information, misinformation. I would like to go to Islamabad and ask Abinjan, how do you react to misinformation and disinformation and fake news in Radio Pakistan?
I would like to share that majority of the times, like for example, there's some breaking news in all the channels, they are in a rush to give it on TV in the form of tickers. But in the case of Radio Pakistan, we have this privilege that because of the authenticity of our news, even the Prime Minister of Pakistan, he retweets the information and the messages that we provide and share with our listeners and with our followers. And in case there is some misleading news, we can use our social media. And I would also like to share that Radio Pakistan has 2.5 million followers on Facebook, which is a huge number by the standard of almost 1 million followers on Twitter account. So the information that is fake, different ministries share it with us, and we immediately put it on our social media that this news is fake and do not believe in that. So I think it's a huge bridge again between the common man and the government.
Thank you very much. Question to you, Alexei. Some countries are modernizing their arsenals. We were talking about peace building initiative. Some countries are spending huge amounts of money in the middle of a global health crisis. Is it possible for media to find the necessary argument and to show that more weapons does not necessarily equal more security and more stable peace?
Well, at the very least, we all should try. Again, as I said, the only thing we can do as journalists is to show the human side, which is very often means human suffering, and to try to be as human as possible in our reporting. Whether we can affect our governments, that's the question I do not have an answer for.
Okay. I've got a question from Maria Luis in Rye, Italy. So that means that our European colleagues already joined us. Of course, David also is there and he will contribute to next session. Maria Luis from Rye is asking that she would like to know how the COVID-19 restrictions and the lockdown affected communication of your organization with respect to local minorities. Did you organize programming to support less privileged audience? Who wants to take up this question? Abimjan?
I would like to share the pride that this organization has in gelling together and cementing the people who belong to the less privileged classes, including people who belong to the minorities. We are regularly inviting people from all religions and all faiths to come over to Pakistan, or in the case, like in the present scenario when there's this pandemic, our broadcasters observing the SOPs, they go to their houses or they take those people on call and they share the specific concerns of those communities with the communities who can connect to them through radio or even through social media. So I think that Pakistan and our organization can be strengthened only when we preserve our differences. So we have been translating our programs in 22 languages, and all people from all faiths and religions have always been and always will be dear to our heart, and we'll always keep connecting to them.
Thank you very much. There was another good question from Roberto. And the question is, what percentage of viewership was lost due to high traffic to online content? It's an interesting question that in terms of radio and television, traditional radio and television, what percentage of viewership was lost due to high traffic to online? Who wants to take up this question? Sheena? Sheena, again, please unmute your talk. Next time I have to bill you.
Noted. I keep forgetting. Thanks for the question, and I think it's a very interesting question, and I wouldn't be able to put a percentage on it, an accurate percentage, but I would say that a large number of our viewership was lost to the online platform, which is why a lot of our programming and a lot of our shows were actually diverted or diversified into made adaptable to the online platform, because obviously a lot of people had more access to the online platforms, and a lot of that was trending at the moment. So I think it's safe to say that a large number of our viewerships were sort of taken away from television and onto the online platform. But I think that's also why broadcasters have also diversified into that space as well. Whereas they would go to that platform to get information, we can always divert them back to television to get more factual information, more real-time information as well. So yeah, I mean, that's what's happening here in Papua New Guinea.
Thank you very much. And I received another question related to increase of violence against women, and anyone can answer. Violence against women has increased during pandemic. How media can play its role to address this issue or reduce it, not making a reference to a particular country, Pakistan? Yes, Abim John?
I would like to share that Radio Pakistan is in constant touch with the Ministry of Human Rights, and whenever they make a public service message in order to protect women, including violence against women and sexual harassment, Radio Pakistan translates those messages into our 22 regional languages, and each and every station, it relays it again and again on through our radio and on our online channels also, so that people can know what is the helpline and women in distress can approach the correct forums. So I would also like to add that our Ministry of Human Rights is really happy with the performance, and I, being a woman, I feel that I have the double duty of doing something that can protect my own breed.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wants to respond to this question? Okay, if not, then I would like to ask a question to Alexei and change the topic. Alexei, do you believe that journalism has a future as a profession, or is it likely to disappear and be absorbed by bloggers and all that?
Javad, as a professor of journalism at the Moscow High School of Economics, I'm answering this question almost every day, because that's the question my students asking me. Is there any reason for us to study journalism? And I honestly say, well, the answer is yes, but it's conditional upon whether we can keep this trade as a separate trade. And I refer them to what has happened half a millennium ago, 500 years ago, when we had the first newspapers in Venice. The reason people were prepared to pay money for the news was because all of a sudden they had the source they could trust, and they knew people were responsible. For that money, people gave the pledge of sending them the correct information. So if we can, in this totally new world, which has only been in existence for about 15 years, the world of Web 2.0, if we can separate altogether, I mean, no matter how different we may be from all the news outlets in the world, it should be, and I insist, it should be our mission, apart from everything else, to keep telling our audience, while as different as we may be, we are the source of news, and you can get 3, 4, 5 different sources to compare. But remember, we are the people who abide by the law and abide by professional standards. So here's where you get the authentic news, which you can compare. Blogosphere are people who are responsible for nothing. They will just tell anything, pretty much anything they like. They are not regulated by law, by the license, by their professional standards. So if we succeed in installing this idea into the wide audience, yes, the answer is yes.
Thank you. One quick question to Yusui-san. I received that They want to know whether for OTT market growth that you mentioned, actually, you introduce subscription fee for viewers or not, and then what the traditional broadcasting companies can be survived in competitive situation. Very brief, Yusui-san.
Well, it's very difficult to say, but what we are hoping is, the advertising market among the, OTT platforms should be raised so that we can get, another fund from another market, not from the, traditional way. And also actually TBS does not take any license fee, but actually NHK take the license fee from among the viewers, but we don't. But as for the SVOD services, we also do have one platform, which is actually competing with the other broadcasters as VOD, and also as well as Netflix or Hulu, or, those kind of, and Amazon. They're very, very huge. So the way of I think the surviving way for the broadcasters is to updating the new programs, because we have ability to the everyday producing programs. So with this power, we have to keep refreshing the libraries and to appeal to the audience. And that's, yes, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We are about to reach the end of this conversation. I would like to offer one last opportunity to each panelist for 30 seconds only to say just one of the most important points that you want to raise or emphasize in this conversation. Very precise, short, and to the point. I would like to start with Sheena. You have 30 seconds.
All right, thanks, Javad. In terms of today's discussions about moving ahead or media lessons for future challenges, look, I think, challenges such as the COVID pandemic have broadened our horizons. It's made us think outside of the box. It's also forced us to be innovative and also look at our business and also our industry in a whole new light. So I think it's really important that, moving forward, that we all sort of look at it that way. And also, I think what's really important is the partnerships that we have. So a forum such as this, we get to learn of each other's experiences, and obviously how we can sort of adapt to challenges that may appear in the future.
Thank you very much. You exceeded 30 seconds, so I will definitely send you a bill. Yusui-san, you have 30 seconds.
Yes. I say the rebuild and reinvent and to optimize ourselves to the ever-changing society. I think it's like making a new industry. Thank you.
Interesting from management perspective. Very interesting. Abing-John.
To my mind, two basic things that we've come across are collaboration, further collaboration, and diversification. These are our strengths, and they will always remain so.
Interesting. Yerlin.
First of all, I would like to underline that this is an unprecedented challenge for all the human beings. And we have to rethink on our behavior. This is absolutely a sort of signal from above that we have to rethink our attitudes and to set everything in a proper way. That's my message.
Thank you, Alexei.
I would say the most important thing is that we were brought to our profession believing 24/7 concept of news is what you're trying to do. It doesn't work anymore. In today's world, your thinking should be 86,407. That's the number of seconds a day. That should be our mindset.
Interesting. Thank you very much. And I sincerely thank all panelists for the time and contribution. I also thank participants for their questions and comments. We would like to, you have already summarized the discussions actually of this session. In just a few minutes, we start the second session. And second session, we have Ibrahim Eren, who is the ABU president. We have Nidra from Sri Lanka. We have Peter Limburg, Director General of Deutsche Welle Germany. We have Shashi Vempati, ABU Vice President from India. We have David Jordan from the BBC. And I invite you to invite participants to stay online, get your coffee and come back in just a few minutes so that we can start the second session on the same topic exactly on time at 3:10 KL time. Thank you very much. All good wishes. Get your coffee and come back again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It sings to me, ABU awakens me. Let's find our song, we need it, can't you hear this sweet melody? Every night is filled with wonders. Through this song let us all unite. Whether we are near or far away, I'm on my way. We can stand united up in the stars, where we share our hearts and our minds. Through our hopes and our lives, we'll choose to come together. When ABU calls, we'll begin. That voice, it sings to me, ABU awakens me. Let's find our song, we need it, can't you hear this sweet melody? Every night is filled with wonders. Through this song let us all unite. Friendships grow, whether we are near or far away. We're on our way. We can stand united up in the stars, where we share our hearts and our minds.
Okay. Thank you very much, and welcome back to the second session of Moving Ahead Media Lessons for Future Challenges. And what you have seen was some footages from the last face-to-face General Assembly that we had in November 2019 in Tokyo. Good memories from a face-to-face meeting. This is our will and wish to get together again in Hanoi in November this year, and let's hope that will happen. I'm happy to welcome all of you and welcome also participants to the second session with the same theme. And I'd like to begin our session by introducing 5 distinguished panelists that we have for this conversation. Mr. Ibrahim Eren is the ABU President and Chairman and Director General of Turkish Radio Television with us. Thank you for your participation. We have also Nidra Veerasange, who is Group Director of MTV NBC Capital Maharaja Group in Sri Lanka. We have Peter Limberg, Director General Deutsche Welle from Germany, who joined us. And we have Mr. Shashi Shekhar Vempati, ABU Vice President and Chief Executive Officer, Pasabati, India. And we have David Jordan, Director of Editorial Policy Standards, BBC in London. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us in this conversation. I know that it is very early in the morning in Europe, and also good time in probably Turkey and of course for Asia. And thank you very much. I would like to begin our conversation without any delay, and I would like to start with Ibrahim, the ABU president. Ibrahim, what went right? What went wrong? And what lessons did we learn as media professionals from this pandemic?
Thank you very much, Jawad. What went wrong is, generally speaking, the whole world is going in an awkward situation because it has been more than 1 year now, the pandemic. In terms of public service media and TRT, the hardest thing was of course the health safety issue regarding our colleagues, because we had been many other crises before, and this one was specifically difficult in terms of health safety measures we took for our colleagues, and it makes our job very hard to do that at the same time while we were trying to give information to the public. And so, of course, we had difficulties maintaining that safety measures because we were in the streets, and unfortunately, we had too many cases at TRT. Even though we had too many measures, I would say I can say that in terms of what went wrong, even though you take all the measures, it is impossible to get your people getting infected by COVID-19.
Thank you, and I agree with you. That is a very actually important challenge that we all faced during the pandemic, and it took so much. I mean, more than a year now, and we were never expecting that much long. I'd like to go to Colombo, Nidra. The pandemic has posed challenges on all of us, on the industry. What are your thoughts about how we can effectively navigate these challenges? Briefly, Nidra.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Dr. Javed, for this opportunity. As we know, coronavirus led the so-called globally connected entity into a multitude of isolated entities. Most of us had never experienced this previously. And many segments of society we belong to were challenged and changed, and then we adapted. As you said, it was more than a year now, with more than a third of the world's population facing some restriction on movement. Many were forced to stay at home. For people with the shift towards an increasingly digital, mobile, and social media environment, it was technology through its ability to connect virtually that kept the world connected somewhat. We had to face a new reality where we had to allocate resources based on scenario planning and maintaining productivity by providing staff with supporting tools for virtual communication and collaboration. With so much uncertainty, reassurance on the job, security, and especially care and support with regard to health and safety was needed. The challenge was to step up within the short time and deliver also while planning the next steps. At the beginning, the majority stepped into crisis mode with renewed energy, and this exposed both the strong and weak links in the team. I don't believe that only managers should possess leadership skills. It was evident to us that anyone can demonstrate good leadership, especially at a time like this. We recognize many staff who took on the responsibility to strategize and communicate and encourage team members, both colleagues and superiors. A year later, we still have some of them who have taken on extra duties to ensure that the operation runs smoothly.
That's right.
So basically, it was during these challenging times, especially as we are a 24/7 operation, even though we were in lockdown for 3 months initially, and the second wave hit us in October last year. As a central lesson of this crisis, it was probably that it revealed hidden talent and unseen qualities in many staff. It gave us the opportunity to recalibrate the team and recognize their strengths.
That's right. That's right. Thank you very much, Nidra. And I would like to go to, I don't know, Bonn. Peter, are you in Bonn or in somewhere else in Germany? But I would like to invite you to advise us what are, in your views, the most important lessons learned from the pandemic from Deutsche Welle perspective as a German international broadcaster.
Well, Javad, thank you for the invitation, first of all. And it was amazing to see this nice film at the beginning. It was like watching a movie from the 90s. It's already color, but very distant feeling. But hopefully we'll have these kind of meetings soon again. I think here in Germany, we've learned, first of all, that trust in our employees is absolutely vital. And they really paid us everything back with all their energy and their skills to change these these media house into a home office operation, basically. And I think this is the most important thing we've learned. On the other side, we were quite lucky that the interest in our products really increased. So our figures and numbers exploded during this pandemic. Which is a nice side effect, and they're still growing. So this is something we are happy with, and I think which is also vital, that the free flow of information is absolutely important in these kind of times. That verified journalism is the key to help people around the globe.
Thank you very much, Peter. I agree with the points you mentioned, in particular, trust in our employees. That's the main factor for broadcasters to win the situation, to overcome the challenges that we all are facing. I like to go to Delhi, where Shashi is there. If a crisis like COVID-19 strikes again, Shashi, what would you do differently?
Thank you, Jawad. Good morning, good evening to everyone from wherever you're joining. Thanks again for this series of talks, engaging CEOs across the region. To your question on what would we do different, I think the singular thing about the COVID-19 pandemic was it was unprecedented. So you had no SOP, you had nothing to fall back on. You were improvising and discovering measures and methods every single day. So what would we do different? I think the one big lesson that we take from all this is that we need to build in a lot of flexibility into our emergency response measures. And as was rightly pointed out just now, that trust in the employees, trust in the, because you can't, when you have a large network, especially like ours, which spans hundreds of stations and channels and transmitters, you have a very geographically dispersed workforce. So there's a lot of delegation, a lot of decentralization that is necessary. And so how do you ensure that the right emergency measures are being taken in such a decentralized setup? So a lot of flexibility needs to be built in. You have to have, you need to adapt as the situation changes, as things evolve, as our understanding of the pandemic itself evolved. Because the science itself was, revealing new things. To begin with, we thought, it was all surface-based transmission. Then it, masks became important. So the various measures that were taken one after the other required a lot of improvisation and adaptation. And that is something we'll have to build into our emergency response measures, so that next time we are faced by something like this, we have that agility to respond as the situation evolves.
That's right, and in particular, I agree with you that in terms of management, we should have flexibility to respond to the challenge, and also we have to operate in a decentralized format. As I remember Ibrahim mentioned some times ago that we used to invite all our staff to come to the station. Now we would like to invite them not to come, do the work where they are, in order to succeed, in order to serve audience. I'd like to go to London. David, some professionals believe that with the rise of the internet and mobile devices, all the greatest advances in media have now been made. Is this true, and what would this mean for the future of radio as a distinct medium?
Morning, Javad, and good morning to all of the rest of the participants in your excellent conference. I don't think so. I think it's a very unwise person to speculate that technological advances has stopped, and I don't think that's likely to happen. I remember many years ago when I was editing Panorama, a colleague of mine pronounced, this was in the early 90s, that radio was dead. Radio seems to me to be very much alive still to this day, and is still very much alive in the UK. And the radio stations of the BBC have played a critical role in disseminating information and generating a sense of companionship during the COVID lockdowns that we've experienced in the UK and across the rest of the world. And we are participating in a large number of initiatives to experiment with the nature of radio. Clearly, the digital changes in radio production have made a huge difference, but in the availability of things like podcasts and catch-up radio, catching up with the way in which television has developed. Radio is no longer simply a linear form. These things are changing all the time. These things are developing all the time. So I think the time shifting that has happened in television and is still going on is now beginning to happen, or has started to happen in radio, at differing speeds across the world. And we're part of that innovation and change just as much as everybody else is. So radio is still very much alive in the UK, and I suspect elsewhere in the world too.
That's right. Thank you, David. Back to Ankara, Ibrahim. My second question to you is that what has changed forever, and how do public service media respond to the new normal or a new world?
I would say any normal rather than any world, because we are, if the pandemic finishes ends like in 1 year, it is not easy for us to forget it. So it will be a new normal. But in terms of what has changed forever, I think the business manner in terms of the culture of doing things has changed for us forever. What I mean, two things, I guess. One is now we are working with the architects about, we are trying to rebuild one of our buildings. And now we are discussing what is the minimum safety space for a person in an open office. And is it safe to be in an open office, or do we have other zones for the safety? So the safety measures, I think, forever changed. And the second thing is, of course, the way we are doing is of course, digitalization has been always very important. But now we, again, once understood that for us, the working remotely and investing more on the digitalization is much more important. Though digitalization has been important for the last 10 years, but now working remotely, and so now let's say we have people, we have my colleagues now working not just from outside of Ankara, but outside of Turkey as well. So, and we are easily maintaining it. I think that those two things has changed forever.
That's right. So utilization of what digital technology offers to media. To Colombo, Nidra, your media network is largest in Sri Lanka and famous for innovation, etc. What is the most important action that will direct you and your business in future?
Yeah, it's important for us to understand the dynamic competitive landscape. The move is now towards an increasingly digital, mobile, and social media environment. The progress of media technology and the pace of technology change almost feels like a treadmill of continuous reinvention. We need to master how these technologies will enable new offerings and their role in the evolution of the business in terms of making use of opportunities, especially with the evolving nature of revenue generation through audiences with varied consumption habits. I believe we should think about and plan for a future beyond conventional media, Simplification will be the key here in consolidating internal processes to streamline the business. For example, functions that are important now may be relevant in the future. The past year gave us the opportunity to identify and address several areas, such as the different delivery methods or new product development. And we have to make a change to be inclusive, diverse, nimble, and flexible enough to connect with changing audiences. I admit it can be challenging to find new ways. However, we must find the right balance between the new ways. Necessarily does not mean that you change your principles and fundamentals when what your brand represents.
Okay.
We should not be too hasty to dismiss what has served us up to now. The core value and responsibility of broadcasting remains the same while the industry is constantly evolving. We should remember that trees change their leaves, but not their roots.
That's right. Thank you. I agree with you that the core value of broadcaster will remain no matter situation will change. Peter, I would like to ask you to take us to a post-COVID situation. And Ibrahim said in a year, I hope it is not that much. But what changes will Deutsche Welle keep after COVID-19?
Surely we will have more home office or mobile office for our employees. I think this is very likely to happen. Probably there will be 2 or 3 days in the week where they will have the opportunity to do home office because it pays off. It makes your people more happy. But better without a pandemic. But I think this is going to change. The post-COVID, I think, is a challenge because the way we do journalism in this pandemic is quite difficult because in a lot of countries there are tremendously high restrictions on freedom of movement, of gaining information. So I think we have all as journalists have to give pressure on everybody to come back to free style of journalism, and these COVID restrictions are quite easy for some governments and very helpful in their mind, but to gather free and unbiased information, it's kind of difficult. I think this will be a challenge for all of us doing journalism to come back into a free spirit journalism.
Thank you. And the point that you mentioned about home office and mobile office is interesting. Perspective in our future perspective. Shashi, what irreversible changes, if I may say, have become the new normal for both Doordarshan and All India Radio, one of the biggest and largest public service media in the region?
I think the biggest change for us is the use of IT and digital tools. This was an organization where everything was physical. And me coming from an IT background, one of the shocks and surprises for me was, how paper-based and how physical meeting-oriented our entire organization was, both on the TV and radio side. And I think that has now irreversibly changed. We've become completely IT-enabled. IT tools are being used irrespective of the age profile of the workforce, because one of the characteristics of Prasar Bharati is we have a large number of employees who are in the 50 plus age profile, and all of them have taken to using IT and digital tools in a big way. Meetings are being conducted in using remote conferencing tools. So that has been a big cultural change, and I think that change is for the good and forever. It's not reverting back to what was the situation earlier.
I agree with you. How many staff you have in All India Radio and Doordarshan altogether? 55?
About 25,000 roughly.
Each or together?
Together.
Together. Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to London. David, change the topic. The spread of disinformation has become a real threat in recent years. And is traditional media capable to counter the so-called infodemic, and what are the measures that can be taken by individual media outlets and by the industry as a whole?
Well, I think the traditional media is actually critical in combating the threat of disinformation and fake news across the world. And one of the helpful things about the pandemic, if there are any helpful things about the pandemic, is, as Peter was saying earlier, that there has been a move back, in a sense, to quality and to trustworthiness. What we've seen in the UK, at any rate, is that people coming back to the BBC to make sure that they have accurate information about the pandemic and about the various lockdowns that we've endured in the UK, and accurate information about the health risks and all the other aspects of COVID, with which we're now all too familiar. And in that context, the role of traditional media, if I can call it that, public service media in particular, to convey accurate information to viewers, listeners, and online users becomes absolutely critical. So first of all, the most important thing that we can do to combat disinformation is to offer accurate information ourselves and make sure that people understand that that's what we do. And that is about getting things right, as we've been being talked about earlier, getting things right rather than first in our news operations, and also being open and transparent about where we, for example, get things wrong. I mean, we have it's very important that where we get things wrong at times, which we all will do, that we say so directly so that our audience trust is increased rather than decreased. So audience trust in this context is absolutely critical, but there are things that we can do collaboratively as well to try to organise against the fake news world. And the BBC under Lord Tony Hall instituted a trusted news initiative, which is a combination with Facebook, Google, YouTube, Microsoft, AFP, Reuters, the EBU and others, to try to act quickly where there is some particular piece of disinformation circulating, either in relation to COVID or particularly in relation to elections and the democratic process, so that we can actually intervene directly to do something about it. So there's a collaborative role for all of us, as well as our individual role in making sure that our information is trusted.
Yes, you talked about trust and important points. We'll get back to that. But I would like to invite you, panelists and participants, to listen to two contributions from two CEOs. One, VOV Vice President from Vietnam, and the other one is Director General of Bishkek Public Service Media. Let us hear what they say, and then we'll come back to the conversation.
Voice of Vietnam has taken new initiative in management, production, and transmission to attract more audiences. First of all, the role and the value of public media station has been significantly strengthened, especially during the crisis with the infodemic of misinformation and fake news. Audiences will turn to trustworthy media outlets for the most accurate and precise information. Voice Vietnam has immediately implemented special programs such as online teaching, talk show with the specialists, etc. Second, the application of digital technology in the remote management, production, and transmission has demonstrated its advantages and superiority during the crisis, and needed promoting in the coming times. For instance, listening and watching on the digital platform using digital archive, data for program production and transmission, online teamwork become also convenient so as to reach more audiences.
Dear our partners and all members of ABU, I would like to inform you about the problems faced by the Public Broadcasting Corporation of Kyrgyz Republic during the COVID-19 pandemic in Kyrgyzstan. Among the first restrictions was cancellation of studio programs with the audience participation. The corporation was entrusted with a great responsibility for timely and reliable information of the population and selection of television and radio content to cheer up the population in a difficult time. The number of TV series, films, archival materials and other content of similar nature was increased, and most of our partners gave a helping hand by providing us with the free TV content. Balastan Children's Channel did a great work and produced 650 series of TV lessons for school children. This is a huge contribution to the ongoing educational process of the children of Kyrgyzstan. I consider our journalists as heroes as they worked in the red zones, accompanied the rescue services and doctors. It's difficult to say how long this will last and what consequences are expected. The world will be different. But for today's challenge, it is important to save ourselves and loved ones.
Thank you, Mr. Hien, Voice of Vietnam. Thank you, Mr. Bakhtiar, Kyrgyzstan. Appreciate your contribution. Back to our conversation, I'd like to go to Ankara again. And you touched, Ibrahim, that the pandemic lasted more than a year, and it still is continuing, and we don't know where we go. How that changed the core principles of the values of TRT, missions, business plans, and how will you be different broadcaster after this crisis?
You know, Jawad Bey, broadcasting industry is a very dynamic industry, and we have been adapting ourselves to the changing environment for the last 15 years. X generation, Y generation, Z generation, video on demand, digitalization, podcasts, too many things. And we were like, as the public broadcaster, which usually the most experienced, the oldest broadcasters in the country, has the legacy of streaming. But for the last 15 years, we were adopting ourselves at TRT to understand the needs of the audience. So this one, of course, it didn't change our values or the vision, and the mission is always the same, to give information, to entertain the people, and be the public broadcaster of the country. But it certainly changed our business plans and the organizational development. So we created new departments. From the output side, we adapt ourselves to the new needs of the audience. So we change our content for the people living at home. We like the other broadcasters, we put too many different programs for the citizens that can't go outside of their homes. And in terms of business plans, what we have changed is we have 14 TV channels, 16 radio channels in Turkey, and plus distance learning channels that we have created in the last year. So 17 TV channels. It was easier. It was like one of the not advantage, but one of the benefits of, let's say, the pandemic period and the process was trying to make a more holistic approach to all broadcasting we have. So we put our strategy department and project management department in the heart of every action. We change our business plans in the next 2 years, that we can work remotely at the same time, giving different outputs in the pandemic.
Thank you very much. I agree with you. No change in values, vision, and mission, but change in our business plan and the way of operation. Now I'd like to go to Colombo, Nidra. In terms of sustained audience, sustained audiences will ultimately determine the success of organization. In your views, what should be done? What is the important point to address changing audience needs when moving ahead to sustainable business?
Yeah, the short answer to that will be relevance and accessibility. These two aspects will be key. To elaborate on this, times may have changed, the technology we use and the methodology has changed too. However, to retain and grow audiences and to set apart the trailblazers, it will be how relevant we are and how relevant we remain to changing times. Also, how accessible you remain to your audiences. They will have evolving consumption habits. And in dealing with present day audiences, we are dealing with people of high social intelligence. We often wonder why we are not getting the responses we think we should be. But most times it's because our audiences have moved to other ways of consumption. We need to be aware and alert about this. The issues facing all parts of the industry are strikingly similar. Be that as it may, in navigating solutions, one size will not fit all. What will differentiate you is how relevant you are to your audience. You must connect in ways that your audience wants to connect, communicate, and engage, not only understanding audiences, but knowing the trends that are heading our way so that we have a strategy to take advantage of this and prepare for it. For commercial stations like us, this connection we have with our audience will be key in developing our content. This will strengthen the loyalty between the audiences and our brand, and this will in turn give us the edge to connect advertisers with our brands. We need to understand how important the steps are in the business, and moving ahead for broadcasters and content creators, it will be that it is an opportunity for us on many fronts to use these various platforms in a changed environment. And that is great about this current situation where it is a very powerful tool.
That's right. I want to change the topic, Peter. In light of Pope Francis' recent visit to Iraq, where he met Grand Ayatollah Ali Sistani, what role do you think the media could play in encouraging intercultural understanding between nations?
I think this visit was really important to bring different beliefs closer together, and so I think first of all it was a successful visit, and it was I think a good move from the Pope, but also the Grand Ayatollah to meet. But I think we as media have a role to inform. This is the most important thing we do. But also information means better understanding of each other. So we consider ourselves not as teachers or whatever. We consider ourselves also as a bridge between cultures. So I think this is a role international media always had, and I think we should all, in the light also of this pandemic, see that this is a even more important role in the future.
I agree in bridging between the cultures and connecting different nations together, creating a better understanding, tolerance, and all that. I'd like to hear from Shashi the same point, the same question.
Thanks, Jawad. Though I must confess, I didn't follow the visit that minutely, but from whatever I gather, I believe it was a successful visit. But to your larger question, I think media has a very important role to play in bringing cultures together. And we are seeing that happen in a very curious way with the growth of on-demand viewing and OTT platforms. Today, I can be subscribed to a Netflix or Amazon Prime, and I could be watching content made in Turkey, made in Eastern Europe, anywhere in the world, Latin America, and so on, and watch it in my language because technology has now made it possible to have the same content dubbed and subtitled, closed captioned in different languages. And that brings a certain level of introduction, familiarity with the different cultures where these programs are being made. So in that sense, media is playing a very great role, especially with new digital technology in bringing cultures closer and together. However, at the same time, I think there is also a counter phenomenon, and that's again something that we as public service media need to do something about. Which is also creating awareness about cultural sensitivity. Because once you have content from different cultures flowing in, you not only learn about those cultures, but you also end up in situations where what is being shown doesn't necessarily reflect your cultural values, and it may cross certain lines in terms of cultural sensitivity. So both cultural appreciation and cultural sensitivity need to happen together. And I think public service media has a very important role to play there.
I agree with you, and just to add to what you said, that ABU will launch on 1st of April a new ABU Awards category, Peace Building Initiative. And this will have 3 categories: radio, television, and digital media, just as an attempt to encourage broadcasters to submit entries in radio, television, and digital media to see whether they can bridge the gaps, they can create a better understanding, whether they can create a cultural dialogue among community or nation or whatsoever to build up a bridge among the nations. And the award winner will get the awards during the General Assembly in Hanoi in November. David, I want to go to pressure to achieve better rating that we all have anyway, broadcasters. Is there a line between serving the public interest in the best possible way and the same time performing well in terms of rating?
It's one of the tensions that always exists in a public service broadcast, doesn't it? At our heart, I think we're always about information. Ultimately, the BBC's mission statement since its inception in the 1920s has been to inform, to educate, and to entertain. I don't think it's an accident that the inform comes first. And if you reduced the BBC in its size and stature to its absolute core, I suspect that the thing that would be most important to us ultimately would be inform our news services and factual programming, what we do at our heart. But the two things are not incompatible, as we show through many BBC programs and many programs produced by colleagues around the world. It's possible to imbue entertainment, it's possible to imbue drama, and particularly continuous drama, what we call soaps in the West, with public service values, information, as well as to convey information through simply factual programming. So there is a tension between satisfying both the informing and entertaining aspect of the public service remit, but it doesn't necessarily mean that one has to be prioritized over the other all the time. Things can be done in an entertaining and informing way simultaneously. And that should be the goal of public service broadcasters, to enable viewers to have an enjoyable time whilst at the same time learning things and understanding things which perhaps they didn't understand before. And I think those two things can be done. I think our colleagues across the world and colleagues on this call have shown that those things can be done. It's not easy, but there are things that public service broadcasters can bring to the table, which perhaps some of our streaming colleagues can't do so easily. The knowledge of local markets, for example, knowledge of local tastes can inform the output of a public service broadcaster in a national context in a way which some of our international broadcast rivals and competitors can't do.
That's right. I received a few questions, but I'll leave it to the panelists to advise. Ahmed Seida asked me that media can play important role to bridge cultures, but can media go beyond the interest of their owners? Who is willing to answer? Shashi?
Could you repeat the question?
Media can play important role to bridge cultures, but can media go beyond the interest of owners?
Yes and no. I think, as was earlier pointed out by one of the panelists, that the media is driven by journalism, and journalism has certain universal values. But at the same time, there is this inherent tension between the commercial viability and the kind of journalistic values that you want to uphold. But by and large, practically every public media organization is guided by certain values and certain goals which are beyond the commercial interests, right? There's a larger public good, and that's what brings us together in a multilateral platform like ABU, for example. So yes, I do see that media can go beyond those interests, but at the same time, yes, there is an inherent tension. And that is the purpose of public media and journalism in public interest.
Thank you. Yes, there's also some questions about fake news and the most effective ways of fighting fake news and verifying content. Perhaps I can start with Peter if you want to say something on that.
Yes, but already David answered this question partly by saying that serious, unbiased, and independent journalism is key for fighting fake news. And we are considering ourselves not as an agency against fake news. We are not doing something against. We're doing something for our users. And I think we need tools, and we develop them, like Truly Media, which is a tool to verify videos, or fact checkers, which we have in our operation, to see what's going on in the public sphere of international media, and then correct it if possible. So I think we have an important role in this play, but not as somebody who's actively fighting against something, but to have a broader view on things and to inform correctly, and also, which is really important, have a tradition of then correct ourselves if we've done something wrong, and say this to our audiences.
Another question from Italy, Rai. They ask if pandemic pushed us apart, but during last year, each public service media had to open the door as never before, strengthen international cooperation. I would like to seek your views on that. Naturally, we all agree to strengthen partnership, international partnership. Probably open the floor for anyone to comment. Ibrahim?
Let's say about from the perspective of unions, Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union, European Broadcasting Union, really the pandemic process has strengthened relations between the public service broadcasters, that we exchange our content, we gather together in the first months of the pandemic, and we discuss how we can progress forward and help each other in terms of the content. And at this point, I would like to point out one issue, which is like that pandemic period has showed us, both internationally and locally, the importance of public media, because most of the public service media broadcasters in the countries, audience measurements, the results of audience measurements and ratings have boosted. So which is very important for us, because then people switch their remotes to the public broadcasters in terms of crisis. And even though some see that our restrictions in terms of being a public service broadcasters, I mean the values, are disadvantages, but this also pandemic showed us that these are our advantages and strengths, and to overcome the challenges created by the environment, the ecosystem of that huge media ecosystem. So in terms of international and locally, even locally, that pandemic has strengthened the relations between the public service broadcasters and also other broadcasters, which put the public values in the heart of their broadcasting values mission.
So as the ABU president, I would say that you would welcome international partnership, not only within the ABU Asia Pacific region members, also with European Broadcasting Union, African Union of Broadcasters, Arab State Broadcasting Union, and others.
Yeah, of course, and thanks to you, Javad Bey, and the people in the secretary of the ABU, we had many conferences online that, like these conferences, you put together people from Asia, Europe, Africa, and other countries, that we exchange our views, and also it helps us to create new opportunities for all of us.
Yes, thank you very much. We are reaching the end of the session, and I would like to invite each panelist to advise the most important point that you want to emphasize, or you have emphasized in this dialogue, both in terms of responding to challenge or post-COVID situation. So I'd like to invite you all to use this opportunity either to summarize or mention the most important point that you want to emphasize. Starting with ABU President Ibrahim Eren.
The public service media has been existing for the last century, for the 100 years, and I believe that those crises showed us that we need that services in every country, all over the world. So this is very important, I think, for all of us, the importance of the public service media in days of and years of crisis.
Okay, and Nidra?
Yeah, I would say that we have to reinvent but remain relevant, and relevance in whatever we do will ensure our long-term sustainability, the connection with our audiences, as well as gain us new audiences. Sometimes the habits we create to survive might not serve us when it's time to thrive. So I would say we need to step out of our comfort zone, survival mode, and create new habits in order to thrive.
Okay. Peter?
Yes, I think digitalization is key. We have to change. We have to change as an operation always. We have to keep the trust in our employees, which we gained even more in this crisis. And for me, the free flow of information, freedom of expression is absolutely key in these kind of situations.
Okay. Shashi?
Yeah, I would like to echo what one of your earlier panel members mentioned, that it's not just 24/7, it's every second of the day that you have to be available. And what this pandemic taught us was when the chips are down, the lights are out, everybody else, the entire planet took a pause, but public broadcasters had no pause. You worked through the day delivering news of importance because we were the most trusted go-to avenue to know about the pandemic. And I think that just underlines and emphasizes the importance of public service media and broadcasting, and that will continue.
David?
I think the civil emergency caused by COVID has demonstrated the utter centrality of public service media in every nation in the world as a source of trusted information and news, which people can rely on. The second thing I'd say is that it's shown how critical technology is to all of us, and how critical it is to be at the cutting edge of technology to allow us to produce in different ways. And we've shown enormous flexibility in doing that. But thirdly, I would say that the challenges haven't gone away, particularly the challenges of international, very well-funded subscription companies and streamers. That challenge to media, public service media, has not disappeared. So as we emerge from this in some ways stronger, we still have the same challenge to face.
Yes. Still, we have a minute or two if there is any other points that panelists would like to mention. Okay.
I have a point.
Shashi?
A comment made by David about the streaming platforms and the challenge from them. I think one of the things that we have to do as broadcasters is to be more digitally available, more integrated with digital technologies. One experiment we've been doing is embedding QR codes on our linear streams. So it's an easy way, especially in a country where everyone now has a smartphone. They can just grab the QR code of the television screens and find the content whenever they want to catch up with, be it on the radio side, be it on the TV side. So this is going to be a very key element, that how do we become digitally available, digitally enabled broadcasters.
You want to comment on that, David?
I agree with Shashi about that. I think that is a key element of how we move forward. I think one of the things that the other thing I should say about what the BBC has learned during the COVID epidemic is that as well as informing, our role in education, I don't know whether this is true of lots of other broadcasters across the world, our role in education has increased hugely during the lockdown, with schools closed and so on and so forth. We've made a massive effort based on our existing learning programs to spread that learning application across many more school students in the UK, and that's had a huge effect. So our audiences for things like that and for our information have gone up, but our challenge remains on the entertain side of things in combating the challenge of the streamers. It's not just about distribution; it's also about the quality of content and what people want to watch and listen to in the new world.
David, you made a reference to education, and I would like to offer the floor to Ibrahim, because TRT has done some good job about children and youth education. Ibrahim, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you. You know, the license fees are always discussed in the countries of public service broadcasters. People are complaining about the money they are giving. But in the pandemic, thanks to our three distinct learning channels, primary, middle school, and high school, different TV channels, we created those channels with our around 500 colleagues from TRT in just a very less than 2 months. It was a very hard job. 7 days, 24 hours they worked, they stayed, they slept in the studios, and so we get an applause from our citizens about the license fees they are paying to TRT, because we created those distance learning channels. And again, those crises are also giving us opportunities that we can prove ourselves to the audiences in the country that we are needed and helpful for the citizens in the country, for all the audiences. And it was very challenging job for us, but the only reason is the only reason that we could create those channels actually were the hardworking of the colleagues in the TRT, rather than planning or other things. But they gave their life for it, for TRT. You know, most of the people working for public broadcasters they start working in public broadcaster, and then they retire from public broadcasters, and they were looking for those kind of opportunities in terms of prizes, and they took that opportunity and turned into a service that is very helpful to the country.
Thank you. I would like to offer first to Nidra and then Peter. Nidra?
Yeah, just to add to what Ibrahim said, once again, we are a commercial broadcaster, but we actually acted in the best interest of the country and the people. Even our staff were 24/7 on call. They stayed over. We had to work in shifts to avoid any spread of infection or anybody bringing the virus into the premises, because news is a very sensitive operation. And also, I believe that creating a strong team is ultimately the difference between success and failure. And this gave us a really good opportunity for us to cultivate people who may have gone unnoticed before. Also, the use of technology and the shift in thinking. See, strangely, we have acquired audiences. That's again is because of the trust in the brand. And I believe that your brand credibility and trust is one of the most important things in terms of connecting you with the people.
Thank you, Peter.
Well, I think the importance of public media has been already mentioned, so I don't have to repeat it. But what was astonishing for us was that our people managed, after a couple of weeks, to even produce more content than they did before. When we returned to full operation, they even were able to do more magazine, especially on COVID and science and environment. And so we could offer our partners, we have more than 4,000 partners around the globe. So they had a daily COVID-19 television and video on demand magazine. So this was really amazing for us to see that this is possible.
That's right. You all mentioned that public trust has been increased. You mentioned that audience viewers, both radio, television, are watching more public service media than before. Do you think that that will give an opportunity to public service media to put a little bit, I would say, political pressure or whatsoever, diplomatic pressure on authorities to either increase the license fee or add to the contribution that they do for certain content for public broadcasters? Shashi?
Well, in India, we don't have a license fee. In fact, we are very unique in the sense that we have to earn all our operational expenditure as commercial revenue. So in that sense, while there is renewed trust, commitment, and interest in the from a public funding standpoint, the challenge is always there in terms of increasing our commercial revenue to fund our operations. And that's where we have done some innovative experiments with platforms where we have been able to use our infrastructure and provide it on demand to our commercial partners, and that will generate revenues, and that is sustaining the public service operations.
David?
I wish there was a straightforward relationship between funding, we are funded by a license fee predominantly, and our success as a public service broadcaster. But sadly, observation of the past suggests that there is no necessary relationship between those two things. I don't think we can rely, even though the BBC has had a successful time during COVID, I don't think we can rely on that necessarily to provide us with increased funding.
Okay. Anyone else, Peter, as a public broadcaster?
Yeah, but we are special. We are not depending on a license fee. We get our money from the German Parliament, and
That's right.
luckily in the past years they reinvested much more into our operation. So I have a special a good feeling about this. But I can understand, and I see the discussion in Germany. It doesn't automatically mean that people are wanting to give more money to public broadcasters, unfortunately.
Okay. Before offering the floor to Ibrahim to close the session, I would like to give opportunity to Nidra.
Yeah, I think I want to thank Dr. Javed for arranging several of these webinars and other workshops during this past year. It has really helped the staff to be motivated, and also for us to connect with colleagues and friends who in the ABU we usually meet at least twice a year. For leaders also, it's important to feel that they need to connect with people who matter, and that was made possible by ABU. So thank you so much, Dr. Javed. And also it's nice to see most of the colleagues who have been on this webinar. And I mean, we have got back into the mainstream of things. In fact, we are producing 2 main international shows, The Voice and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. That again, they are audience related shows. So we have to do it under several restrictions, but life goes on. And I mean, I wish everybody all the best, because I'm sure all of us will come out of this towards a much better and brighter future.
Thank you. And to ABU President to close the session.
Thank you very much for all the participants and Dr. Javad Bey organizing this event. And just to add to the license fee and the funding issue, I think we need to prove ourselves to the public in order to ask for more. And of course, there is not a correlation, but the funding has to be the result, and it hasn't never been the reason for your success. So we need to work hard. Being a public service broadcaster is not an easy task. We always need to prove ourselves. We have always 7 days, 24 hours burden on our shoulders to the people. And we, of course, in the changing environment, we need to invest in the commercial revenue. We need to increase our national or international commercial revenues in the upcoming years. So I think this is our biggest challenges in the next coming decades. And thank you, Javad Bey, for organizing and inviting us.
Thank you very much. Thanks to participants who joined us in this conversation. Thanks to David, to Peter, Nidra, Shashi, and Ibrahim. Thank you all, and hope to see you again in not too distant future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jawad.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.